Hello, welcome back to another live. My name is Laken and I have something in my teeth. Welcome back. I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer your questions about goals, planning, and life, and also a topic of the month or of the week, rather. Every week, I keep saying I'm going to have a cool intro at the beginning here, like Sarah Cannon, who I talk about her all the time, y'all. I'm obsessed, and I love both her Heart Breathings channel, which is about planning and business and project management and time management. And then she also has her Sarah Cannon channel, which is her author channel. And she goes live every week and she has this cool intro at the beginning. And I keep saying that I'm going to do that. And then every week, here we are with no intro. So let me take a sip of my water while everyone joins. I feel like it would also help this awkward, like in between where people haven't quite joined yet, but it is what it is. Why do I feel like I didn't get the thing out of my teeth? I am so sorry, y'all. That was disgusting. You did not need to see that. This is a live Laken. This is not you. Wow. Y'all, today it's one of those days. It's like 55 outside and sunny, and I want to be out there in the beautiful sunshine. But let's kick it off with our first question. Hi. What is one small win that you have from the last week? If you are here live, please say hello in the comments. What is the one win that you want to share with the group? It doesn't have to be huge and it doesn't have to be complicated. If you watched last week's live and you said that the one step you were going to work on was whatever, and you did it, that is your small win for the week. Mine is exactly that. I finished using our registry discount. I got a bunch of stuff. The amount of Amazon packages we're getting right now, I feel very bad for our Amazon delivery person. I got a lot of stuff, but I utilized our entire discount, which feels really good. And I feel like we're pretty set up for the rest of it. It puts ads in for you at the beginning. So there's always a delay for coming in. Interesting. I did not even know that, first off, and that makes sense. So maybe it would help with that at the beginning. I didn't even think about that. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. There are some things I feel like I have. So part of it is I have YouTube Premium. So when I'm watching other people's videos, I don't always necessarily know what the user experience is like for those of you that don't have premium. Then the other piece is I don't typically watch people live. I watch Sarah Cannon's live every week, but I rarely watch it live. I pretty much always watch the replay. So I don't actually know what that's like. Okay. Finally had my planning meeting to set work goals. I love that. Small, big win. Realized last night that February was just about surviving. Did not abandon ship on my goals and looking forward to March. I love that. Holly, thank you for including your name since your YouTube handle is not your normal name. I have managed to write 2 days this week, which is amazing since I fell off the wagon the last few weeks. Progress. You got Billy bookshelves for your office from IKEA. So now the storage in your work area makes a lot more sense. I love that, Brittany. That is so fun. Thank you for sharing all of your wins. And if you are part of the replay fam, please also share your wins in the comments. I love hearing about your wins and coming back to read them. I have got a hot coffee this week. I know I don't ask about your drinks anymore. You're welcome to still share, those of you who have been around since I asked about them. But I made like a whole latte. I even like steamed the milk and everything. I picked up my physical book and read it. That's amazing, Lisa. I hope that's helping you figure out what you find fun. All right, speaking of books, what a perfect transition. Let's talk about my updates for the week in terms of books. I finished Iron Flame, which is the second book in the Fourth Wing. That's not the name of the actual series. Fourth Wing is the first one. I'm probably going to mispronounce the actual name of the series, so I'm not going to try. Like everyone said, the second one's not as good. It is not as captivating, I feel like, as the first one. There are definitely slower parts. It's much longer, and there are definitely slow parts to the book. I don't love the ending. I'm not here for it. I hope that I don't know. We'll see how the third one goes. Obviously, I'm going to read the next one. And I'm still, so what's funny is I talked last week about how I did put them on hold at the library, the audiobook version, so that I could just enjoy listening to them. And that I probably read, especially Fourth Wing, a little too quickly to get through the plot because I wanted to know what was going to happen, that I probably missed out on some of the nuance and the beauty of the actual writing. And so by listening to the audiobook version, I would be able to enjoy that. And when I originally put them on hold, my library wait time said estimated several months. It didn't even have a number. It just, or normally it says like X weeks. It just said several months. And then all of a sudden, our library got like 100 copies. And so then all of a sudden, Iron Flame was available. And I was like, well, I don't want Iron Flame until I've listened to Fourth Wing again. So I delayed it. If you use the Libby app, you know what I'm talking about, where you say like, no, thank you, not right now. But it was hilarious that it went from like several months to here is the book. It just blew me away. And I'm not ready yet for a reread quite yet. I was hoping it was going to be several months. I'm not quite ready for that yet. So since I finished this fiction book, I moved in to, once again, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm trying, y'all. I am trying. I saw on my Kindle when I reopened it that, because I actually bought it on Kindle when I was trying to get into it, and I got 27% of the way through the book last time and quit. I'm not anywhere near that far yet. I'm struggling though. The beginning of this book is so slow. And I know everybody says that not only is the beginning of the book slow, but this book in general is not the best, but it is worth it to get to book 2 and 3 and so on in the series. So I'm going to power through. And I know some of you, when I talked about this on Instagram a few days ago, which reminds me, if you don't follow me on Instagram, if you don't have Instagram or you're not a fan, totally understand. The content on Instagram is very different, I feel like, than the content on YouTube. And on Instagram, I'm just like real life hangout. But one of the things I've been doing this year that I really love is I have not been posting in real time over the weekends and just enjoying that time off. It doesn't mean I don't open the app, but from creating on the app. But then on Monday mornings, I will do a weekend recap of what we did over the weekend, any cute pictures or videos of Lila from the weekend, etc. And so this Monday, I talked about how I tried to get back into this book. And some of you sent me a YouTube channel of somebody who does like a funny recap and to just watch that instead of actually try and read the book. And I'm struggling with that. I want to, but at the same time, I feel like I want to read the book. But then I'm like, maybe I watch the YouTube video so that I know what happens, and then I will maybe enjoy the book more, but maybe not. I don't know. But that's what I'm currently reading in terms of fiction, but I'm not very far into it. Hang on one second. I noticed a typo on my next thingy. Okay. All my other currently readings are the same as last week. So on audio nonfiction, I've got Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Tawwab. And then hard copy nonfiction, I've got Chill and Prosper, which I am enjoying and I am making progress, but it is slower than an audiobook because I'm just reading it for 10 minutes in the mornings, typically just weekday mornings. So, and then my Daily Stoic, I have read it 92% of the year so far. So that feels really good. And that is my reading update. Let me get over here into, yes, that's the name of the series. I just don't know if that, I just don't know if I'm going to pronounce that properly. I'm a few chapters into Iron Flame, hard copy, and halfway through listening to Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I've never heard of that. The first book of A Court of Thorns and Roses is Julie's favorite. Brittany, that's what everybody says. No, read the book. Once you get halfway through, it's amazing. Halfway is a lot of book. It's a long book. Could you try the audio version? I thought about it, Jennifer, but I have never, so I just started getting into audiobooks like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, right? If you've been around, you know, I didn't used to be an audiobook person. And then I finally got into them last year by no, it was not even a year. It was like the end of summer, like July, August timeframe. I started with biographies, and that probably is still my favorite type of audiobook to consume. And then I moved into a little bit of nonfiction. The only fiction audio I've done are books I've already read. And that is just Harry Potter. That's it. So it's like a story I know inside and out. So I don't know if I would be able to really pay attention to the audio version. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it would make it any better. Like, is my attention span on the hard copy going to be, or on the audio going to be just as bad as it is on the actual book? If you do the audiobook, you should do the dramatized one with a full cast. That's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I was the same until I started listening. Okay, maybe I should just do the audiobook. I don't know. I'm torn because I also really want to I do like reading before bed, and I think that it's good. It winds me down. It's not scrolling Instagram, but it's not like the audiobook I was doing where it was like, "Okay, I'm ready to close my eyes," right? Whereas like reading is not closing my eyes. And so that's why I want to read the actual book and not the audiobook. But my February goal is to finish Iron Flame. However, it's not what I read right now. What I need right now. So I'm still reading other genres, which makes me happy. It's also a really long book, Stephanie. So if you don't finish it, like you don't finish it. And it isn't as good as Fourth Wing. So hopefully the rest of the series picks back up. Although I Googled, of course. She doesn't even have a time frame for the next book yet. Like the other ones, she already had it done by the time she released the first one. So it was like ready to go. And she doesn't have a time frame for the next one. So, oh well. Okay. That's my reading update. Now let's talk about goals. Where did is this it? Yeah, there we go. That looks up to date. I've basically finished all my monthly goals, which feels really good. I'm actually filming my goals video today to talk about these. So I'm going to try not to be super repetitive, but I finished all my monthly goals. I'm not going to finish December daily in the next 8 days. I did go ahead and carry that over to March. Weekly steps. I know I say this probably every week that they didn't need these here. Like I was going to do them anyway. So that feels good. The daily goals are going pretty well, as you can see. Like I feel good about them. I haven't done them every day. I would never do something every single day. I am going to carry reading nonfiction into March, but the other two I'm going to let go. And I have two not new daily items. You'll see when you see my March goals video. But that is my update on my goals. Another really good month for me. And I know I said this on last week's live, but I really credit that to a smaller number of goals, really small steps, and being really focused on what is important to me this year and not setting like extra superfluous goals. So that feels really good. All right. Let's talk about the topic for this week. So last week we talked about setting goals, but maybe for you, that's the easy part. You're like, Laken, I can set the goals. Like I didn't need that topic last week. What I really struggle with is achieving them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about achieving and actually following through on those goals. Most of the stuff I'm going to say today, you've probably heard me say before. Like there's nothing groundbreaking in my notes today. It is all stuff that you've heard me say, but a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. Number one, our brains have so much information coming at them all the time. So much information. And you cannot possibly expect to retain all the information that you take in at any given time. So it is okay for things to be repetitive. And it is okay for you to hear things more than once. And you will probably hear things that you're like, yeah, I've heard you say that. And you might even like want to roll your eyes, and that's totally fine. It's still helpful for your brain to hear it again, for sure. The second thing that I want to remind you of, and I say this all the time, when you hear me talk about tips and goal things, you hear it and you process it through the lens of your current goal. So whatever you're currently focused on, that's how you're going to process what I'm saying. Your brain is going to think about how it relates to your current focuses and your current goals. So you will 100% get something out of it, get a different takeaway than you have in the past. Now, if you hear it like a week later and you have the same goals, that's not necessarily true. But if I recommend a YouTube video that I made a year ago, you have very different goals. You're in a very different place than you were a year ago. So I want you to keep that in mind when you hear me say things over and over. Number one is you need to get really clear on what you mean by achieving, right? Achievement. This is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot with goals. I want to achieve my goals. Okay, but what does that mean to you? Like, what does achieve mean? What is achievement? Because if all you think about when you think about achieving your goals is crossing the finish line, that's a long ways away. Truthfully, depending on the goal, most of the time, the finish line is a long ways away. So I want you to think about a shorter finish line, or what achievement could look like for you that's not actually finishing the goals. Remember, Small progress is still progress. And it doesn't have to be this, like, if you, let me give you an example. You say you have a goal that you want to read more. And Stephanie is a great example, like she was sharing before. You have a goal that you want to read more. And so you set a goal to read a specific book and finish that specific book. And you realize that at the end of the month, you're not going to finish that specific book for whatever that reason is. The book was too big, your month was too busy, it wasn't the type of genre you needed right now, etc. Are you still achieving the goal to read more? Yes, because that was the goal. Finishing that specific book was the action step you chose for that goal. You could still be achieving the goal even if you don't achieve that specific action step. And along those same lines, kind of wraps all up into one, is you've got to get clear on what that goal means to you, because everybody has a different reasoning or a different, not reasoning, description of goals. We could all have the exact same goals. Like my annual goals are pretty vague. You could have the exact same annual goals as I do, but they could mean something totally different to you based on your life, where you're at, what else you have going on, right? One of my goals is family, fun, and memories. My guess is you probably have some of you have a similar goal to that, but you may have called it something different. And it might mean something different to you, right? Family, fun, and memories with a 5-month-old is going to be very different than family, fun, and memories with a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old. So I want you to make sure that you are getting really clear about what that goal means to you. And most importantly, not worrying about what it means to anybody else. These are your goals. This is your life. And I want you to make sure that your goals that you're working on mean something to you. You're clear on what they mean to you, and you're clear on what achievement means. Don't click on this video and be like, oh, she's going to teach me all the tips and tricks on how to achieve my goals. I'm going to give you some tools to help you achieve your goals. But tool number one is you've got to know what you mean by achievement. Number two, you got to break it down. And then you got to break it down again. And you've got to keep breaking it down. Unfortunately, breaking down your goals is not a one and done kind of thing. Breaking down your goals is not, let me break it down this one time and then I'm done breaking it down. You are going to revisit that breakdown every month, every quarter, and you're probably going to have to break it down even further because that first level of breakdown is probably not small enough. I just listened to the episode this week from The Lazy Genius, her podcast episode that's about projects. And the way that she describes this concept is if you wouldn't put it on a to-do list, you've got to break it down again. And the way I always said it is if you wouldn't put it in your planner, you've got to break it down again. It's the same concept. If it is too big that you wouldn't put it on a to-do list, you've got to break it down into smaller steps until you get to a step that you would put on your to-do list, or you get to a step that lines up with the time you have to work on it. So if you are somebody who you live alone, you don't have kids yet, maybe you can find an hour chunk of time to work on your goals. That can be your breakdown stopping point, is an hour of time. Flip side, you're somebody with a small child, maybe you work 9 to 5 outside the home, and you're lucky if you can find 15-minute chunks of time to work on your goals. That's the breakdown that you need. You need to break it down into 15-minute chunks. The breakdown level really depends on your life. And I always tell you to err on the side of smaller. Smaller is always better. I would always rather you break it down more and get to check off more than one thing than to not break it down, think that you're going to have time to do that whole thing, and then you only do half of it, and then you feel unaccomplished. Or you realize you don't have time to do the whole thing, and so you don't even do half of it. Right, just me. Break it down even smaller. Smaller is always better. More check marks are always better. Then, once you've broken it down to that small enough step, you've got to schedule time for it. Is it in your planner? Do you have time on your calendar? This was past Laken's biggest struggle, I think, with goals. I mean, I did a whole video on like all of my prior, I think I called it goal mistakes that I made. But this was a really big one for me, is I would say that I had a goal to, I can't even think of an example, do something. And then I would not put that in my planner. I would find a way to fill my planner with a million other tasks and to-dos, none of which were related to my goals. Like it just didn't make sense. Your planner and where you spend your time has to line up with what your goals are. If you do not put them down in your planner, you won't do them. Like it is that simple. If you're here, you probably use some sort of planner. You probably have some sort of scheduling system. Even if it's Google Cal, you have a planner or scheduling system for your life. Where are your goals in that system? Where is the time that you've set aside? Now, if you are somebody who you're like, well, like my life is always up in the air and I can't plan that far in advance, you don't have to plan it that far in advance. Ask yourself tomorrow, when on my calendar tomorrow can I work on my goals? Even if it's for 5 minutes. When this weekend can I work on my goals? Maybe you're somebody who you're like, I don't want to be tied down to doing something at a specific time. You are a rebel tendency. And you're like, I don't want to say to myself that I'm going to work on this thing on Saturday at 11 a.m. Don't. First off, you don't have to say exactly what time. You say at some point over the weekend, I'm going to spend an hour on my goals. And then you also don't have to say exactly what goal you're going to work on. You can say, I'm going to spend an hour on my goals. And then when the time comes, you can pick which goal you're going to work on. But there still needs to be alignment with the time on the goals list to the time in your calendar, even if it's not exactly, you're writing exactly what you're going to be doing, but you have goal time scheduled in your planner. I know that this, like the whole process, it sounds so much more simple. You're like, but like I know all those things and I'm still not achieving my goals. I feel you. And that is why I would highly recommend you join the community if that is something that you're still struggling with. If you are clear on what it means to you and you've broken it down into smaller steps and you're scheduling time for it and you're still not doing it, let's chat, because I have a feeling it is one of these three things and you just need somebody to talk it out with. Sometimes it is as simple as hearing from me that that step is still too big. Literally the other day, somebody sent me a text and they were like, I'm going to start tracking my food. And if this is a topic that you struggle with, I'm not talking about anything specific related to like diet or any of that stuff. She wanted to track her food. That was important to her. And I said, that's awesome. But let me tell you that tracking your food is a huge step. To go from tracking nothing to tracking at least 21 meals plus snacks plus drinks, that's a lot. That is a lot. And then layer on top of that, that most people, when they start tracking their food, also try to change something about their food, right? They're trying to make adjustments as well. And I said, let's make that even smaller. I want you to either pick one day or 2 days that you're going to track, or one meal. And you're going to track one meal a day, and that's it. Do not try to track everything. And you're going to track that meal. You're not going to try to change it. You're just going to track whatever it is that you're having. And that was the small step. I know that tracking food sounds like it's small, but it's actually huge. But from your perspective, you may not see that. An outsider's perspective can tell you it's too big and that the issue is you need to break it down more. So I know that there was no like secret weapon, secret key that I have for you in getting all the check marks and achieving all your goals. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It can be very simple as long as you know what achievement means. You break it down and you put it in your planner. It's that simple. All right. That is it for the topic this week. It didn't take me near as long, or maybe I didn't talk about books as long, but let's move into Q&A time. So if you have a question, it could be about a topic. It could be about the topic we just talked about. If you don't know how to phrase it into a question, you can put topic and whatever the topic is. It could be a question about your specific goals or a struggle that you're having. Do not feel bad if you feel like it's very specific to you and your goals. I promise somebody else is going to benefit from the answer. Or it could be about anything else. Anything else you want to chat about, the rest of the time is yours. My coffee is very good and it's like the perfect temperature now, which means I need to focus on drinking it. Otherwise, we're going to get to the end of this and I'm going to have cold coffee. I think that's why I stick with iced coffee a lot of the times, is because I know that even if the ice melts a little bit, it still will be the same temperature, the right temperature. Mm, yum. All right. What do you want to chat about? Come on. Someone's got to have a question. Something you're struggling with, setting up March goals. Great question. How do you know when to stop tracking a daily goal? So, a couple of things. One could be that you're just done doing it, right? A daily goal doesn't necessarily have to be something that you're going to keep doing forever. You could stop doing it and then obviously you would stop tracking it. The other the other wow, my brain just stopped working for a second. Um the more common situation is it's something that you want to continue, but you're going to stop tracking. Now, if you have space on whatever goal planner you're using and you're not adding in other things, I would just keep tracking it. There's no harm in tracking it. But if you're ready to try not tracking it, that's exactly what it is. It's trial and error. And you're going to take it off and you're going to see how's it going. And for me at this point, I kind of know just like a gut feeling. It's usually around 80% of the time. If I did it 80% of the time, to me, that feels like it's a habit and I'm good and I can stop tracking it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen where it pops up that I stopped tracking it and I stopped doing it. And turns out I needed that extra level of accountability. I add it back on. You can always add it back on. So if you feel like you're ready, feel free to take it off and try it and then know that you can always add it back on. I also have found myself sort of tracking in some other places lately, which has kind of helped. I started using an app called Habit. I talk about it more in an upcoming video. And that has kind of made a little bit of a difference. So even though I'm taking, like I said, I'm going to take I am statements off of my goal sheet, I am still tracking it over there. So that it's not like I'm not tracking it. It's just right now I'm tracking it in two places. And part of that is from a memory standpoint, so I don't forget. And then part of it is also that extra layer of accountability. So there's no one right answer. I mean, 80% is the general rule of thumb that I use, but it doesn't mean that that will be right for you. 80%, you may take it off and you still feel like you need that accountability. It kind of also depends on how, like, what else are you attaching that habit to? Are you attaching it to a habit that already happens all the time? Then it's probably in pretty good shape. Or is it something brand new at its own time of day? It's not attached to anything else. You might need another month or two to keep working on that habit. Don't feel bad about keeping it on there and tracking it for multiple months, even if you're doing a good job. You saw me do that from January to February. In January, I had tracking finances and I did it like 80 something percent of the time, but I still carried it over to February because I felt like I still needed that extra umph to keep me going. And then the last thing I will say on this, sometimes I carry them over, not because that particular step needs it, but it keeps me from adding other daily habits. And that is also helpful for me. I needed to hear that I can still achieve a goal without achieving the action step. That's a struggle for me. I'm very all or nothing. I need to work on that. And honestly, that's not even necessarily an all or nothing mindset. It is just that action step may not be the right action step for you. I say this a lot, but goal setting is a lot of trial and error. And there are some things that you will try and it doesn't work for you. It's not the right action step. It doesn't mean it's not the right goal. It just means that it's not the right action step. So you have to ask yourself, okay, am I not doing this action step because of one of the other things that I just said? I didn't break it down. It's not on my calendar. Or is it because this action step isn't the right step for me and I need to pick something different? There are a million and one ways to achieve a goal. There's a bunch of different paths and action steps that you can take. And so just because one action step doesn't work for you doesn't mean that you can't achieve that goal. River J, so we can look at each step as an achievement and breaking them down gives us clear steps which we can celebrate each one. Yes, absolutely. 1,000,000%. I read Butcher and Blackbird this week and it was amazing. The audio was one of the best I've ever read. Whoever did the audio did an amazing job. I've never even heard of that book, Amanda, but I'm here for it. Aki, I don't have a question, but a water update. We talked about water, maybe that was 2 weeks ago, Aki. I got a new vessel that isn't a metallic one, so it doesn't keep the water super cold, and then I add a small amount of warm water. My water recommendation is always to make sure you're drinking it the way that you like it. And one of those things is temperature. And when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with Aki, she shared that the temperature of the water was too cold. And so we brainstormed some ways for their water to be the right temperature. And so I'm glad that you were able to figure that out. It's a serial killer romance. So good, but tons of trigger warnings. I struggle with weekly goals. I never know what to set, and then I don't achieve them when I set them. I do fine with daily and one time. Okay. So to be totally honest, Stephanie, me too. Weekly goals have never been my strong suit. I see the value in them, but I'm going to tell you why I don't think they work for me. Number one is my weeks don't always look the same. Right. Even though it seems like, well, your life is pretty consistent. Like, it's not like you have weeks on, where you like divorced families where you have a week with kids and a week without kids, or your work schedule is different every single week. Like, I don't have any of that. But for whatever reason, because my weeks all look different, I can't seem to grasp when to do weekly steps. I totally feel you on that. So my first option for you is the permission to not do them. You don't have to do weekly steps to make progress on your goals, period, the end. There is no rule that says that. The other option is so the weeklies can be a couple of things. It can be where you are further breaking down your monthly steps. So let's say you have a goal to read 4 books in a month. You could break that down into 1 book a week. And then there might be times that you hit that and you get that check mark, or there might be times that you don't hit that, but you could still hit that monthly goal. So you're tracking it in 2 places. This could be things that only have to happen once a week. So if you have goals, like, for example, right, one of my goals right now on weekly is swim class. And that is because we're not going to swim class more than 1 time a week, right? So that is a weekly item. Now, again, I paid for all of those, so I don't know in what world I needed the check mark to make us go. Meal plan doesn't have to happen more than once a week. So that is a weekly step. The other option for weekly steps is it could be a summary or culmination of your daily steps. So I actually started doing this with my sister with her goals. So for example, she had a goal to not eat out a certain number of times in a week. And so in the daily section, she put not eat out as the goal, knowing very well she wasn't trying to check that off every single day. She was going to eat out. This is not all or nothing land. There is no world in with which my 23-year-old sister was not going to eat out. So, but she had it in the daily section. And then in the weekly section, she had don't eat out X number of days. So if she hit it, then she got the weekly check mark. If she didn't get the weekly, but she could see the progress she was still making on the daily. That one is a little more complicated because it's a don't do. Maybe a better explanation is like she also did it that way for working out. Right. So her goal was to work out a certain number of times each week. And so she had it in the daily, again, knowing that she wasn't going to check off every single day, but she would see the progress. And then in the weekly, she had work out X number of times. And so if she did X minus 1, she didn't get the check mark for the weekly, but then in the daily, she could see that she still did it however many days. The conclusion comes to, though, you don't have to set weekly goals. If it does not work for you and you don't achieve them, don't do them. Focus on your monthly and your daily stuff. Tammy, first off, thank you for including your name. Topic is tracking. I forget to track sometimes. Are timers on the phone a good reminder, or putting it in a planner or calendar? I think I'll track later and then I don't always. So I also forget to track. And the reminder to do so is going to be very dependent on you. All of these options that you shared are great options. They're going to work for some people and they're not going to work for other people. So my recommendation is not like do this one specifically. It's going to be figure out which one works best for you. But let me give you a couple of thoughts. Number one is, where are you tracking? Make sure you're tracking somewhere that you see it very regularly, right? Somewhere that you see your tracking. So what used to work for me was my monthly tracker sheet, my goal sheet hangs above my desk on my little magnetic calendar. and I would sit at this desk almost every single day. Maybe I would miss a day or two. And I would see it. And so then I would remember to track because I would see my paper. That doesn't happen all the time anymore. I don't always sit at this desk every day or even most days. So that's why I had to start finding other ways to track, and I started using an app on my phone. You have to also track so it needs to be in front of your mind. It needs to be at the time of day that also makes the most sense for you, depending on how likely you are or are not to forget whether you did it. So if you are somebody who's not going to forget whether you did something, you could maybe do it once a day or every other day and play catch up with your tracking. But if you're like me now and you cannot remember if you did something, I kind of have to do it like pretty quickly after I did it. Like I have to track in the moment. Otherwise I will forget whether I did it or not. I'm totally honest now. So that's the only reason why I like tracking on my phone, is because I can do it in that moment. Oh, I read the Daily Stoic, track. I did my I am statements, track. And then some of them I come back and I transfer to this, partially for accountability, partially to see my progress. Because while I do like the app for tracking in the moment, I don't like the app's visuals for seeing the progress that I'm making. So that's why I still like this page. So you have to figure out what works for you. Another good option is going to be to tack it on to something that you already do. So let's say you keep this by the coffee, and every morning you track while you're making your coffee, or you keep it on your nightstand and you track right before you go to bed, right? Like attach it to something else if remembering to track is really the struggle that you're having. And then the last thing I'll say is it is going to be trial and error. You're going to try some of these things. Some people do well with phone timers, some people don't. Some people do well with it being in their calendar, some people don't. Some people do well with it visually in their face, some people will look right past it. So you've got to figure out what works best for you. I just wanted to thank you again for the recommendations regarding mental versus physical exhaustion. This past week, I've been doing a chore with an audiobook, and I've been looking forward to that time. I love that. Yeah, last week we talked about what Amber was doing like after work in her evenings and feeling exhausted after work, but also feeling like she needed to do other things. Love that. Also, the new vessel is smaller, so I can finish one before I start my coffee. Oh, I totally feel that. Visibility would help. I don't always have my phone on me. Okay, so then the phone is not the option for you, right? I feel like I always have my phone on me. Good for you. So that one works for me, but it may not work for somebody else. Exactly. I think attaching it to a regular action would help. And don't hesitate to also put on like a goal sheet, whatever goal planner you're using, track goals. Like when I first started using a goal planner, however many years ago, I had an action step to check in with my goals and to track my goals, because it was something I wasn't in the habit of, and I had to get in the habit of doing it. So make that an action step to check in and to track whatever it is. And remember, when we say track, like that is a phrase I feel like we use, like track and tracking. There's a couple of reasons, or there's a couple of things, and remember what's important to it for you. One reason is to have data to use in the future, right? Like right now I'm tracking my workout minutes to then hopefully set a goal with that information at a later point in time. It's also tracking to see the progress, right? I can see all the check marks that I've checked off. I can see the progress that I'm making on my goals. That is another big reason for me for tracking, is like, I could sit here on February 21st and be like, I don't even feel like I did any goals this year or this month. And then I look at this and I'm like, oh, no, I did. See all that progress? Or you could be tracking, like it's the accountability of the check mark holds you accountable to doing it. All of that is tracking to me. Now we want to create a bookmark that's a tracker itself. Somebody actually suggested that to me in the comments when I was talking about reading nonfiction. They were like, you should make a bookmark and track it there. And that's a great suggestion for a reading tracker, but that wouldn't help with tracking all my other goals. It would just work for that one particular goal. But Tammy, hopefully that was helpful a little bit. And just try and see how it goes. And then you could try something else. And eventually it will click. What else? What else is on your mind? Any other questions? Anything else that you feel like you're struggling with as we move into March? Stephanie, how do you break down financial goals? I tried using YNAB, which is what I also use. It stands for You Need a Budget, and track each purchase, but I found that overwhelming. How can I break that down further? So a couple of things, Stephanie. I'm going to point you towards 2 videos I did on financial related goals. And I would recommend watching those. Even if you've already watched them before, watch them again with wherever you're at currently. But what I will tell you, unfortunately, with finances, in order to know where you're at financially, you do need to track each purchase. Like, it is very helpful and almost necessary information for you to know where your money is going, for you to even set any sort of additional financial goals. My husband is a financial advisor, financial planner, and every single one of his clients, he asks them for, like, in general, where are you, like, where's your money going? And you've got to kind of have at least a general sense of where your money is going. But in terms of actually doing the tracking, let me give you my tips there. Number 1, don't try to go like back and backwards track. Like, don't set a goal right now to say, I'm going to track all of February. That's 21 days worth of spending. Even if you are one person who doesn't spend that much, that is still a lot of transactions. I would not recommend that you try to go back and track. I would start with where you're at and you track going forward. And I know that is opposite information of what a lot of financial people will say. And I just want to share, like, I'm coming at financial goals from the mindset of my own personal, what has worked for me with finances. And then I have worked with some people one-on-one on finances as well. Trying to go back and be like, go get the last 6 months of expenses. You'll never do it. It's overwhelming. There's too many things. If you're going to track finances, you got to start in the prospective. Number 2 is you've got to start with daily, because that is the best way to make it small, is to start every single day. And 5 minutes typically is enough if you do it every single day to track your finances, because they're like, unless you went on some massive spending spree the day before, you will only have a couple of transactions that you need to categorize. Now, at this point, I typically aim for every other day because I am on top of it. And so even if I have, like, I think this morning there were like 7 transactions for me to go through, although like 4 of those were Amazon from the baby registry spree I just went on. But my point is there were a few more because I missed a day, but I was able to, it didn't feel quite as overwhelming. Whereas if I tried to go a whole week, then all of a sudden it would feel incredibly overwhelming. There would be so many. I would look at all those and be like, that's not happening. So what I would recommend, Stephanie, is I love YNAB. I think their interface, I think their platform is fantastic. I would do what they call a fresh start. So you're going to, like, clear out everything that's already in there. You're going to start back at 0 and then just start tracking going forward. And don't try to backtrack and do the back steps, and start daily. That's the best way to break that down into something very small. No, it's maybe not necessarily the answer you want to hear, but I promise that is what works with finances. It worked for me. It's worked for people I've worked with one-on-one. It works. How do I motivate myself to work out again? I missed some of the coaching yesterday. So yeah, I would definitely recommend the video, the community coaching call we did yesterday. The topic for this month, which, I meant to say that when I was talking about the topic about next month. Actually, I guess that makes sense to me next week, because next week is still February. So never mind on that next month's topic. The topic for this month is momentum. That's how you get motivation, right? Is momentum. And the way you get momentum is action. And so what we talked about yesterday was restarting actions. So actions that you had done before that you are restarting, which I'm assuming this applies to you, given that you used the word again, that this is something that you were doing before. So on yesterday's call, I gave you a bunch of options. I would recommend going to listen to that because I definitely had very well thought out notes that went with that slide, unlike what I'm going to share off the top of my head right now. But my number one tip here would probably be to make it as small as possible. Whatever you were doing before in terms of working out, even if it was consistent, you're starting from zero again at this point. So don't try to jump all the way up to 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever you were doing before. Make it smaller. Start with something 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to kickstart that action to something really small, to then kickstart that momentum, to then get the motivation. You're not just going to be able to pull the motivation for this out of thin air. It's going to have to come from momentum and then therefore coming from action. So making it smaller, bribing yourself. I'm not opposed to that, to kickstarting that momentum again. And ask yourself when you were doing it consistently, what was working in terms of this goal? Time of day, type of workout, outfit that you had on, the fact that you got to do it while everybody was still asleep, the fact that you got to do it. I actually have been enjoying working out while my daughter is awake because she has her little play area right next to the Peloton. And so I get to look at her cute little face while I work out, and it motivates me. She will just like sit there and smile at me. It's like stare at me while I do it. And it's the cutest thing. Of course, I'm tearing up about it. Okay. And that's fun. Like, instead of trying to squeeze it into when she's napping, I'm like, I'm going to do it while she's awake, and it's fun and enjoyable. So ask yourself when you were doing it, what worked about that action step. What else? Anybody else have any other questions? We're all good to go. We're all ready to go for March. I mean, I have March all set up. A little sneak peek for you. A little March all set up. I'm about to film that video, actually. And then if you're part of the community, setting up the March goals call was yesterday. So you can catch that replay to set up March whenever you are ready for that. That reminds me, now that I've done this, I need to take a picture and post it on the Facebook post. All right. If nobody has any other questions, then I am going to end it with my last question for you, which is, what is one thing you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one small step you're going to take? You know, it does not have to be big. What is the one thing you commit to doing 100%? If you're here live, I would love for you to share in the live chat if you're comfortable. And if you're watching the replay, I would love to hear down in the comments what your one step is. My one step, I struggled because, as you saw, my February goals are done. And I feel good about my dailies that I'm going to continue through the end of the month. And March goals are already set. So my one thing actually is not directly related to my goals, but it's to actually do my Thursday workout. The last however many weeks, I'm like looking at my workout thing, at least then all of February, I've consistently worked out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'd fall off. And I don't do Thursday, Friday. So I'm committing to tomorrow, following through and doing my Thursday workout. I have a Disney yoga picked. I'm going to do the easiest step to get myself to start working out again. Something small. Hitting your daily minimum, which is making your bed on days I work from home. I love that, Jamie. Having a daily minimum. That was another topic we talked about this month in the community. Finish one book halfway and it's short. You've got this. Call a new dentist and car repair service place. So much progress. Do a fresh start. That's what it's called in YNAB, and start tracking. Yep. If you go in forward motion, it helps with tracking finances for sure. Committing to working out on your own tonight since your personal trainer can't meet this week. Cook one homemade dinner. I love that, Tammy. Choose a budgeting app. Good luck with you. Good luck on that. I feel like that's tough. I always recommend YNAB, but there are lots of options. So you got to figure out what works best for you. Try to find another book to read. This one's just not doing it. Oh, it is okay to not finish a book. It is okay. I love that. All right, y'all. I love hearing about all your action steps. Thanks for hanging out again this week. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week, focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching.